Hello, Duality dudes and dudettes. I am Christian here again with Duality of Wrestling podcast, and thank you for joining me today because we are going to talk about a pretty exciting event we've got coming up tomorrow. For those watching, I am recording this right about lunchtime on Tuesday afternoon, the day before AEW's Beach Break Dynamite. So, this is going to be completely devoted to previewing that particular show, and we've got a lot to cover because this is a really, really big Dynamite. This is seriously potentially earth shattering in terms of the ramifications that can occur. And there are going to be some really great matches to go along with these potential storyline developments as well. I am really personally excited for some of the possibilities that can arise out of this. So let's get right to it. What we're going to start with is Jericho, not Chris Jericho, of course. We're still just doing Jericho versus Tommaso Ciampa in maybe not culmination of their feud that they've had brewing for about 5 weeks now. And their interview segments have been decent. The pull apart brawls, especially in the backstage and loading dock area, have been fun. I'm interested to see where this goes because Ciampa has flat out been on fire in the ring since debuting in AEW. Obviously, he won the AEW TNT Championship in his first matchup, but more importantly than that, he has just been so good in ring since joining the company. And I am looking forward to seeing how he's able to manage, obviously, a 50-plus-year-old Chris Jericho, who has always been great in the ring, but Father Time is undefeated. We have to see how exactly he's able to keep up with a guy on Ciampa's level, despite Ciampa not exactly being the youngest duck in the pond himself. So I'm looking forward to this match. It's, a great vehicle to potentially elevate Ciampa further. Jericho won't be hurt by a loss here, but Ciampa certainly would be, unless you're talking about the feud continuing beyond this, which I think is very possible. I think we'll probably get some kind of gimmick match at Redemption. That's what makes me think Ciampa could well either go over here clean, or if Jericho does get the win here, there's going to be an immediate heat back acquisition segment for Ciampa where if he loses, he's going to immediately beat down Jericho, lay him out through a table, whatever implements of destruction he can get his hands on, he'll end up using. Um, this is not going to be a situation, though, where Jericho wins cleanly and Ciampa just goes to the back, frustrating and tugging on his beard in aggravation. This is going to be either Ciampa wins or Jericho wins and Ciampa immediately gets his heat back with a post-match beatdown. So I do see us in going towards gimmick match territory at Redemption, the pay-per-view coming up in a few weeks. But since we have some time to get there, I think we're going to see, again, either Ciampa clean win, or what I would say is probably most likely is a Jericho win with Ciampa getting his heat back after the match. So let's move on. We've got another, what's going to be such a fun match to watch. I am so excited for this because honestly, these are two of my top five in the world right now, and they're going to lay it all on the line for the AEW International Championship, and it's got a great storyline build to it. I am so excited to watch Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle by God Fletcher tear the house down at Beach Break. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be such a great watch. These guys, have some of the best matches in the world individually. If you need, proof of the resume of what these guys can do in the ring, I implore you to go back and watch Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay, especially their steel cage match. I implore you to watch Konosuke Takeshita versus Kazuchika Okada. I implore you to watch Takeshita and Okada versus the Young Bucks from earlier this year. Everything that Fletcher and Takeshita put their hands on in the ring turns to gold. It is the opposite of the Trump effect. They are flawless victory at anything they're involved in. This is going to be no exception. I flat out can't wait to watch this match. Now, as far as an outcome goes, I think we're going to see Takeshita retain here. I don't immediately see a quick flip-flopping of the International Championship back to the Don Callis family. If you remember, Okada held that belt for quite some time and only dropped it to Takeshita relatively recently. I don't see them making a change there so quickly after Takeshita won the belt at Forbidden Door from Okada, putting it right back into the Don Callis family. Because that being said, why do that at all? Yes, you could argue it was done to allow us to get to this point of Takeshita versus Fletcher, but I don't think so. I think we're going to allow Takeshita a little bit more of a reign here to build that out. And build up keep the prestige of the title the way it's been. We've had great reigns with the International Championship, going from Pac to Orange Cassidy to Okada to Kenny Omega, now to Konosuke Takeshita. I don't see them hot-shotting the title back into the DCF here, so I think we're going to see Takeshita retain. I think this is also going to be, a situation where they immediately, do a post-match brawl. Callis family gets involved, lays out Takeshita, probably leading to at least a rematch, if not a gimmick rematch, at the Redemption pay-per-view. Similar booking to what I expect for the Jericho Ciampa match, which makes me a little bit hesitant in predicting it, because usually we don't like to do multiple finishes on the same ilk on the same show. I just don't see any way that Takeshita drops the title cleanly here, unless you're talking about a screw job finish where you get a screwdriver involved or a DCF member involved, costing Takeshita the title to Fletcher here, which I'm not going to rule out. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It just seems a little bit too fast and would be a little bit short shrift for what Takeshita deserves and how he's been built up. So I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Fletcher wins via screw job or outside interference finish, but my prediction's still going to remain that Takeshita keeps the title here and we do a rematch at Redemption for the championship under some kind of stipulation. Now let's move over to some of the more unpredictable stuff. We've got the Casino Gauntlet match for the number one contendership for the AEW Women's World Championship, currently held by Tekla. And we have the number 1 and 2 entrants to this match are confirmed via their winning qualifying matches, are going to be Athena, their ROH Women's World Champion, against Maya World. And that's primarily being done to set up the eventual matchup between Maya World and Athena in Ring of Honor for Athena's World Championship. I don't know if they're going to put that title on Maya World. A lot of people are saying they should. I will be very frank, a lot of people are much higher on Maya World and Maya World's performance to date than I am, and I am a big believer in what Athena has done with that title, really needing to be paid off well. You don't hold the belt for as long as she had without really having a great idea of how to elevate somebody else and propel them into superstardom by getting a win there, and you can argue that could be done successfully with Maya World, but I'm not sure that she's the person who's ready for that. And again, in my opinion, the match that she had with Mercedes Moné in the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament was not great. There were several botches that really affected the quality of that match. The crowd was super into it, and I think that helped a lot, but it wasn't very fluid for me. They didn't seem to have great chemistry together. I know a lot of people on Reddit and other social media platforms are glazing the hell out of that match. I've even heard some people say it was the best AEW women's match ever. Sorry, bullshit. The Hollywood ending is, for my money, the best AEW women's match ever, and I don't think anything is even particularly close at this point in time. And it certainly wasn't this match if there was one that was close to it. So I'm not on board with the same kind of hype train that everybody else is with Maya World. So I don't think that she's going to be the one to emerge from this match, because if you were going to do that, you could have just had her win the Owen, which would have been a really good underdog story, would have prevented you from doing the 2 times in a row Mercedes victory. Let's be fair, I wouldn't have been on board with that either, but they booked themselves into a corner with their decisions, trying to pivot around their roster depth issues. But there is a good argument to be made here that those roster depth issues are going to be solved somewhat in this match, because given the vignettes that we've seen, it is very likely that Willow Nightingale is going to return in this match and is almost assuredly going to win this match if she's in it. There's no reason to bring her back from injury in this type of a match with the number one contendership on the line unless you are going to have her win it. And if we do that, then the number one contendership isn't just for the future, it is for AEW Redemption. So it is basically going to be the roadblock to getting to All In that Tekla is going to have to take out in the winner of this match in order to get to All In and face Mercedes, which means we would, if my prediction is correct, that we would have Tekla defending her world championship against Willow Nightingale here, and the smart money based on alignment would be that Willow would win that match and go on to face Mercedes at All In. And there is storyline history to back that up. These two have had two matches in the past. AEW booked Mercedes in early on in her career to win the TBS championship from Willow Nightingale, and that started her, Ultima Monet belt collector gimmick that frankly never really got paid off, which is really disappointing, but neither here nor there. We can't go back in a time machine and fix that, because the second time they faced off was to end the belt collector Ultima Monet gimmick, was when Willow Nightingale cleanly defeated Mercedes Monet to win back the TBS championship. And friends, I have all sorts of issues with that decision. If you book a top talent like Mercedes to beat Willow for that championship, have her hold it for a really long time, like it broke Jade Cargill's record for the TBS championship, longest reigning TBS championship of all time, championship holder of all time, allowed her to branch out into the Ultima Monet gimmick where she won, I think, up to 16 titles at one time. You just go full circle and have her lose the belt back to the same person she won it from in the first place. Nobody is elevated by doing that. Nobody grows. Willow doesn't gain anything outside the fact that she beat somebody she lost to in the first place, but she already held that title, so it doesn't reach her to new heights because she's already had that belt. So beating Mercedes for that championship doesn't really do a great deal. So again, I have my whole issues with that. And the idea that we would do a third match for the AEW Women's World Championship is fraught with its own problems. Because one, if you have Willow win this Casino Gauntlet and then go on to Redemption to beat Tekla to become AEW Women's World Champion for the first time, I feel like we're not doing the coronation of Willow Nightingale justice. Obviously, she's a homegrown AEW talent. They've built her up for a while. It was a huge moment when she beat Mercedes for the TBS championship. They gave her a whole celebration, the ticker tape flowing down from the ceiling, the whole 9 yards. So obviously it would be a big moment for Willow to reach the next step in her growth and ascendancy to win the AEW Women's World Championship. Now, would we really want to do that with only 3 weeks at most worth of build? Me? No. I think that is a moment that should be done on a bigger stage, a bigger platform with much more build and emotional gravitas to it. So I would not be on board with that for that reason. The other reason I'm not on board with it is Tekla has done such great work carrying the women's division overall, and specifically the women's world title division since she won that title. It's injustice to have her lose it before All In. She deserves to go in and main event the women's division at All In against a top talent like Mercedes. It would forever cement her as an AEW women's main eventer, and I think the work she has done more than deserves it. If you're going to tell me that they can pivot her, I saw a comment recently like, they could pivot her to cap off her Stardom feud at All In. No. Hard no. I have no interest in seeing that particular feud continue. I didn't love it going into Forbidden Door. I understood why they did it, but I'm done with it. I have no more interest in seeing Tekla versus Stardom with Stardom from afar. I have no more interest in Tekla facing anybody from Stardom at All In. I have no interest with the Triangle of Madness facing 3 Stardom representatives at All In. No, 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 no. Not interested. I want to see Tekla get what she's earned, get all the flowers she deserves from this great run she's had as AEW Women's World Champion, and have the ability to defend on that platform against Mercedes. She's not going to win against Mercedes. She's going to drop the belt to Mercedes. I think we all are agreeing with that. But we don't need to hot shot the title onto Willow just to do heel versus face, Willow versus Mercedes for a third time, this time with a belt that Willow has just won against Mercedes coming off her second consecutive women's Owen run victory. I don't want it. I don't like it. I don't think it's the right way to do this and execute it. I think it would make much more sense to have Willow challenge a dominant Mercedes champion down the road, be it at Full Gear, be it at Revolution next year, something that would be worth crowning with a build and getting us to that third match, the rubber match in the series, if you will, and then having Willow win and take that next step as your women's world champion. I don't like the way it could be done here. So I am just going to say I hope and pray that it doesn't go that way. I don't hold out any hope. Let's be honest. I hold out no hope that Willow isn't winning the Gauntlet match. To me, that feels like a lock. What I do hold out hope for is that she doesn't win at Redemption, because to me that executes a story that's not ready to be told yet, that isn't being built properly, and gives short shrift to a woman in Tekla who has done so much with the little she's been given to make something of the Women's World Championship division. So no thank you. Let's have Tekla go forward. But in terms of this show, and in terms of this particular match, I'm not even going to pencil it in. I'm going to put it in pen, in like Sharpie. Willow is going to win this match. So now that brings us to the main event of the show, Kenny Omega challenging MJF for the AEW Men's World Heavyweight Championship. And it is a last chance match where if it comes to pass that Kenny is unable to defeat Maxwell Jacob Friedman like he has been in their last two encounters, then Kenny will suffer the same fate as his elite brethren of Cody Rhodes and most recently Hangman Adam Page, in that he will be unable to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship ever again. Not just while MJF is champion, ever. So let's look into it. Kenny is obviously, winding down his career in some respects. He is not the spring chicken he was when he was in Japan. He is not the guaranteed best bout machine anymore. I don't mean that to disparage Kenny. I love Kenny. He is still great in the ring. He is just not the unquestioned best in the world anymore. To me, that is somewhere between MJF, Will Ospreay, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher. One of those guys has that crown, or even Bandito. One of those guys holds that crown. It is not Kenny Omega anymore. And that's okay. He doesn't need to be the unquestioned best in the world. He's still phenomenal. And this is still going to be a great match between two guys who are excellent at everything that they do. From a character standpoint, from an in-ring standpoint, this is going to be so, so good. And the drama is going to be high because of this last chance stipulation. I've heard a lot of criticism leading up to this match that, well, AEW's done this stipulation too many times. We just saw it. Why are we doing it again? We explained that. We explained that it is being done because it's already befallen two members of the Elite. So MJF is systematically trying to make sure none of the Elite can challenge him for the World Championship and rules them out of the main event picture ever again, because it makes his life easier, not just now while he's defending the title, but if he were to ever lose it and needs to win it back, he doesn't need to leapfrog Hangman Page. He doesn't need to leapfrog Kenny Omega, because they're already ineligible because of what he's done. It makes perfect sense. And the fact that we're saying it's being done too much, AEW has been, a televised program with regularity for about 6 years now, give or take. They've done this stipulation 3 times. 3 times in almost 6 years. That is not too much. And even if you want to argue that it's been done twice this year, I would listen to that argument. But again, from a storyline standpoint, it makes sense. MJF is emboldened with confidence because he was able to knock out Hangman Page from world title contention. Why would he not do the same with Kenny Omega? And Kenny has lost twice. Kenny has no bargaining power to get another world championship match. So if Kenny is coming to Max in kayfabe and asking for another world championship match, why wouldn't MJF say, this is the hill I'm going to die on? If you want this match, you're going to have to put up your ability to challenge in the future for the world championship the same way he did with Hangman Page. It makes sense. Now, again, like I said, the drama is going to be high. There's going to be a lot of great false finishes in this match. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I am not 100% sold on where this goes, but I know where I expect it to go. I expect it to go in favor of Kenny Omega because based on Max having the hyperextended knee or knee issues that he's sustained a few weeks ago that he's been battling through, he still had that knee wrapped up ever since. He's clearly not at 100%. And I think the way that they have booked the interaction specifically between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay all the way back to Revolution. If you go back there, these backstage vignettes and discussions between these two guys basically started there, where they were building this angel and devil on Will Ospreay's shoulder, with Kenny Omega being the good voice of fight the good fight versus Jon Moxley is like, nah, F that, you need to be a killer. They've had the angel and devil on Ospreay's shoulder storyline that's building. Obviously, Kenny and Will have significant history, both in Japan and in AEW, that's going to be great to play off of. That all that being said, that means the best and most interesting match that AEW can put on in their main event at All In is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the AEW World Championship. And that's what I think they're going to do. Now, how they get there is going to be in question. Is it going to be a situation where we continue an easily existing feud where, where Andrade El Idolo comes out and costs MJF the championship, allowing us to get quicker to MJF versus Andrade in a singles match now that Andrade will have cost MJF the world championship? That's entirely possible. I don't know that we do that. I think it would make perfect sense if they do, and I certainly won't fault Tony Khan and AEW if they book that way. But the other interesting possibility is that we finally get a returning Hangman Adam Page coming out to help his brethren in the Elite not befall the same fate that he was hit with, and come back and help Kenny Omega overcome MJF and win back the World Championship to keep him from losing his ability to challenge for it forever, putting Kenny into the main event at All In, and setting us up for, I don't know, at Redemption. I mean, that's going to be the real big question mark, is do you do a return match at Redemption with Kenny versus MJF? Do you do a multi-man match at Redemption to sort of have there be a little bit more uncertainty as to where we go at All In? I'm not sure. The question of what happens at Redemption, to me, remains unanswered, and I will probably do a short video talking about that following Beach Break, but if we're talking about my prediction here, and I don't want to go too much longer, I'm getting a bit long-winded about this. For my prediction, Kenny Omega is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship at Beach Break, either via the help of Andrade El Idolo or of Hangman Adam Page, and that will, catapult him into All In to face off against Will Ospreay, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This is going to be a great match. I see no way that anybody is disappointed in the result of what happens at Beach Break, as well as, what happens in the ring. So there's going to be a lot of storylines that get advanced here. The question of where we go at Redemption for Kenny, who knows? I think we can easily see MJF facing Hangman or Andrade based on how, this match ends. As far as Kenny, who knows? Maybe Kenny tosses the stip out the window as the world champion. Maybe we're going to book this scenario that Kenny as a world champion has the power to do that. It has been confirmed by Tony Khan that the stipulation for Hangman Page was a gentleman's agreement rather than a contractual stipulation. So AEW is not technically bound contractually within storyline purposes to continue that avenue. I think they will. I don't think they'll just toss it out, because that would ruin the drama that we got at Revolution. But for the sake of argument, Kenny's got some options to face at Redemption. You could, put Andrade in that match and have MJF cost him that match, thus giving us MJF versus Andrade at All In. That makes a whole lot of sense too. There are a great many directions that we could go here. You could even roll Darby Allin into that and put Kenny Omega against Darby as two of your three most recent AEW World Champions. Then you could have maybe Kevin Knight come out and cost Darby because they're still in a program, which would lead us to Kevin Knight versus Darby at All In for the TNT Championship. Also would make a ton of sense. what I think is great about the way AEW has booked things as of late. There are so many different paths that they can walk down based on their creative choices, and all of those paths are believable from an audience standpoint. None of this is predictable. None of this is, oh well, we're definitely getting this. That was the biggest knock on both the Owen brackets, especially the men's side. You looked at the brackets at the outset, you're like, okay, yeah, Ospreay's taking this. I don't think anybody ever thought that anybody but Will Ospreay was going to win the men's Owen and go on to All In for the challenge of the World Heavyweight Championship. But as far as, what we do with the world champion going there, could be anybody's guess. We could be completely wrong. MJF retains and goes on to face Will Ospreay because we've seen them interact backstage a couple times now. That's easily believable and would still be a great match at an All In. Totally worthy of the main event spot. I don't mean to say that it's not. I just think that Kenny Omega versus Ospreay is the better match to put on. It is the better drawing match to put on. It is the match with more history. It is the match that will sell more tickets in a giant ass cavernous arena like Wembley. So I think that's the direction they go, and I'm excited for what they do and what the fallout of that is for the rest of the All In card. So that's where I land us on. I think that we see Jericho win, and then immediately get beat down. I think we see Konosuke Takeshita retain the international championship, but probably also get beat down. I am almost certain that we're going to see Willow Nightingale win the Casino Gauntlet match and go on to Redemption to face Tekla, where I will cross every appendage on my body, probably even my balls, that Tekla doesn't lose the championship there, but who knows? And then I have Kenny Omega walking out of Beach Break as your new AEW Men's World Champion. Recent world title changes on Dynamite be damned. We've only done one in the nearly 6 years that AEW's been on regular television. It's a little bit fast to do it again, but with the stakes involved in this match, I don't see Kenny Omega getting locked out of the world title scene again. So that to me is the easiest predictor of this match. Is I don't see it going down that way. I don't see Kenny Omega ending up at the Hangman Fate. So Kenny Omega is going to be your world championship holder going into All In to face Will Ospreay. One last point of note that I wanted to make everybody aware of. I'm mostly an anti-AI guy. It's not my jam. Don't like it. We'll talk about it at length for anybody who wants to listen, but that's not what this forum is for. However, when I was, confirming the Beach Break card and looking at it, I just, Googled AEW Beach Break 2026. And they list the 4 main matches that are advertised for the card, but they also advertise that the Ciampa versus Jericho match is for the number 1 contendership for the AEW Women's World Championship. And that is just fantastic. It's just such a perfect microcosm for everything AI is, for everything that is wrong with it. Just so blatantly incorrect, not only based on the other matches in the card, but just based on the genders of the competitors. But AI still gets it wrong because that's what AI does. Yeah, fuck AI. But again, neither here nor there. I hope you have a great time watching Beach Break. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about how things are going to go down. What do you expect to happen? Are there any surprises you expect to come out of this? Where do you see these main 4 matches going? Let me know in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you checking these videos out. If you can subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that shit. I know it's what every podcaster says, but I want to grow this audience. I'm committed to giving us content based on AEW product, which I believe is criminally underserved in the podcast space. So please continue to follow. I really appreciate all of you. Thanks so much. And I will see you on Thursday when I recap Beach Break. See you then, guys.